Hey, aficionados, Winston Goodfellow here with Matt Backus of Streetwork Exotics from Wisconsin. Day after Pebble Beach. You as worn out as I am?
Yeah, I'm ready to wrap it up.
Yeah, I totally get it. I'm standing here with what for me was one of the coolest cars at Pebble yesterday. This, if I'm going to be very technical, an Grifo A3 Stradale. Interesting, complex restoration, which we'll get into in a moment. But I also was perusing the web last night and saw Rob Report voted this one of their most 10 exciting cars at the show. So I thought, all right, I need to come and talk to Matt about this. It kind of twizzled my stick, it twizzled their stick. So, Matt, can you tell us just a little bit about the car, and then we'll get into the restoration, which is an interesting story.
Sure. Well, if you don't know the cars, they're Chevy-powered 327, 4-speed car. ESO made them. This is a 1964. It's an alloy body over a steel frame. They made them as like a competition kind of car. They started out. This particular one got put into the street car trim, but yeah, it underwent a pretty extensive restoration to get here.
And so street car trim, meaning rather than having the stripped out interior,
it's got upholstery in there, and really, there's the heater.
Yeah, and that's about right. No AC here. AC, open up.
No AC, no radio, nothing like that. But yeah.
But you know what? This has the roll down windows versus the sliding windows.
Yes. Yep.
So, and then standard 4-barrel carburetor versus Weber carburetors, which the competition car had. What's fascinating about this particular car is you guys had to do some decision making on what configuration you wanted to restore it to.
Right. The current owner was not the owner we restored the car for, but the gentleman we restored the car for had to make some decisions because this car was originally made as a flat window, one of the first 12 flat window cars they made, and they had been changed at some point to a curved window. And it was shown by ESO as a curved window as well. So it could have been in either configuration. And he decided he wanted to go to the original configuration, which was the flat window, as you see.
So when we're talking about curved windows, the window itself, the windscreen, the rear windscreen is wrapping down into the side here.
Right.
And alloy body.
Correct.
Alloy can be tricky to work with. So tell me about taking it from where you had to take the windscreen out, and now what do you do?
Right. Well, in this particular one, you basically, the whole back end of the car is different on a flat window. Every component is a different size or configuration. So the back half of the car had to be recoached into the proper flat window configuration.
Yes. Excuse me, because I'm smiling at his term, recoached. But I
rebodied.
Yeah, coach work makes total sense.
Yeah.
So how did you go about doing that? Because pictures of these are kind of few and far between, and there really aren't any. Oh, right. Here's the blueprint from Pep Boys.
Right. We only had one picture of this particular car, and that was at the Paris Car Show in the flat window configuration. And it wasn't a great picture, but we could use other cars too, of the other 12 cars, to get pictures and try to scale them. And we would you know how big the wheel is. So you could use that wheel to scale how big, like, the vent is, or how long the window is, or how long the trunk lid is.
Yes. And then did you go as far as to do any full-scale diagrams or anything like that?
No, we didn't do any drawings or anything like that. But we also collaborated with another gentleman who's in the process of restoring a flat window car. So we were able to collaborate with each other, see how the things were made and where things were at. And then he was also able to do us because he's having challenges with his as well.
Which makes sense, because these are real rare birds.
Right.
Needless to say. Then what about colors and all that type of stuff?
Well, we knew the car was originally silver, and he wanted to stick, and red, so he wanted to stick with just the original colors on that.
And it looks just sensational. We were out driving around earlier today. All right, excuse me, let me rephrase that. I was out driving around earlier today. We were doing some videography work, and this is just a lovely piece to drive. It's been so long since I've driven either one of these or its successor, the Bizzarini, because Gialto Bizzarini, who was a consultant with ESO, was actually the one that was manufacturing these for ESO. I was amazed at the civility of the car. Outside the tall gearing, so you have to play with the clutch a little bit, but the ride really wasn't half bad. The steering was surprisingly light.
Right. No, they handle and drive really nice, for sure.
I was pretty
I
impressed.
can see why they made great race cars in the day.
The other thing that I really like about these, particularly the flatback window cars, is from a side view, there's hardly anything that looks more sleek than one of these. It's almost like the definition of sleek, where, you know, if we go back to the 1930s, the whole streamlining phase that was going on then, it's almost like this is a modern bullet in terms of the shape.
Yeah, it really has that like GT40 roof line, you know, that real low, sleek.
Yes. Yeah. And it was fun because we were actually out with a 410 Super America Ferrari, which is an impressive car. But then when it pulled up next to this, all of a sudden this thing that looks pretty sporty for the late 1950s looked kind of high.
Yeah, it looked like a truck, but beautiful car.
No,
next to this.
What other things on the restoration should we touch on in here? Any other particular?
Well, I mean, you know, it's a typical restoration of an aluminum Italian car. You know, the whole all the skin had to come off the steel, and a lot of the steel was, you know, corroded, so all that had to be replaced. And this is a rivet car, so the body's not wrapped onto the steel; it's riveted flat onto the steel. So all the steel has to be perfect and in place. Otherwise, you can't get the aluminum to rivet to it without damaging the aluminum. So it's a pretty complicated restoration.
And then we see some rivets on the outside, along the side and on the roof and so on. But there's also, you had to do all the rivets on the inside.
Yeah, the interior has a lot more rivets than the exterior because there's hundreds of panels in there that are all riveted together. And yeah, it's a lot of riveting.
How long did it take to do this restoration?
It took us, from the start to the finish, 3 years. A little bit longer than it would have normally, but there was a lot of research, a lot of downtime on this car. The decision to change it to a curved window happened about 6 months after we started on the restoration. That slowed us down a little bit, but yeah, it took about 3 years.
And that for me would have been an interesting deliberation because in essence, both are right. It's just which way do you want to go?
Correct, yeah. But he could have went either way and been correct.
And this is also another key point in this, is when you're doing a real high-end restoration like this, again, this is for Pebble Beach and other top-end shows on the show circuit, is you have to restore it to a specific point in time.
Right.
Because you can't mix and match, otherwise the judges will eat you alive.
Exactly.
So, what else?
Well, I mean, the mechanical restoration on these is pretty straightforward. Small block Chevy, you know,
any of the undercarriage parts or anything that we don't see, is it unobtainium or did you?
No, everything is just pretty easy to make down there. It was all there, so we could copy it. It was in pretty bad shape. We had to this particular car, you know, it's got the steel chassis, steel floorboards. They insulated this car. They were trying to keep it lightweight by putting aluminum panels over everything and seeing out showing the insulation in between them. All that had to be remade, all riveted into the car as well. So it's pretty interesting design. I've never seen one that was made this way before, but it's really cool.
Yeah. Well, it's typical Bizzarini thinking because Bizzarini was your classic engineer, father of the 250 GTO Ferrari, you know, 3-time world champion. Then he went off and was doing his own thing with these for ISO and then for the Bizzarini Strada GT America for himself. And his whole thing was, it was all about performance.
Right.
It had to go fast. It wasn't.
This car gets up and goes.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And I was amazed that when you get on this, it's almost like this is high-speed elevator. The way it whooshes you back.
Yeah, right.
And the sound of the solid lifter engine and this snarly exhaust is absolutely marvelous.
Right.
So now my note to videographer Lee, when we do some more shooting on this, we really need to mic up the back because it really sounds great.
It does. And interestingly enough, we just made the mufflers.
Oh,
you can't buy them, you can't achieve them. So we just made the new mufflers just last week. So
how difficult was it to find? I'm just going to say the specs for the exhaust.
Well, we were lucky that we had an original set of mufflers that were in terrible condition, but we were able to copy how they were made and everything.
Got it. You got anything in store for Pebble next year?
Yeah, we're going to be bringing out a car next year.
Okay, and so
if we're lucky enough to be invited, but
yes.
It's the type of car I think we'll get invited.
Yes. So, Matt, appreciate the time.
Thank you.
For me, one of the coolest cars at Pebble. Just love the sleek design. Been a while since I've driven one. Total joy. I appreciate that. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the road.